And we're live. Thank you so much for joining us. We're streaming live from the shadows of New York City. We are Music Matters with Jason Tramm, and we're delighted you can join us for our unique podcast community, where we explore the issues and challenges of the performing arts world as seen through the eyes of distinguished colleagues. And we really love to have different genres of music represented, from the classical to the contemporary and everything in between. So thank you so much for joining us. In my 25 years as a professional musician, a conductor, music director, a university professor, and most recently a podcast host, I've learned so much from my colleagues and how they've maintained the relevance of their art during this COVID period. So thank you for joining us today. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on our upcoming guests and topics. We love it when you like and share our videos as you help our community grow. We just recently hit 1,300 subscribers on YouTube. We're delighted. Thank you so much for joining us, and please recommend us to your friends. We have a wonderful guest today and a fantastic independent artist. This is indie singer-songwriter Marco Perfetti. He goes by the stage name of Perfect Mark, which is his name in Italian, and he's from Italy. And welcome, Marco.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and I was delighted to learn of your music. Reverb Nation hooked us up, and I heard your singing, and I'm like, man, this guy can sing. I spend my day around opera singers and about classical singers, but I love to hear a great voice with passion and communicating. And whenever you sing, I feel the words.
Thank you. Actually, that is the best compliment that you can give me because, I believe that the purpose of art is communication, and, the voice is the number one tool of communication that we have. So, people are so obsessed with perfection and technique, and we have this in pop music today. Everybody tries to belt as high as they can and try to show off and do a million riffs and runs, and sometimes we forget that the purpose is to make the audience feel something. And to me, my favorite compliment, and a lot of people, I'm I'm a trained singer and I've studied my whole life and I care a lot about technique, and I get a lot of, your technique is really good. I love when you go high. I like when you belt. Oh, you have such good control. And I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. But then when they say, I felt it, or that made me emotional, or I believed every single word you're saying, that for me, that's it. That means mission accomplished.
It's what it's all
Those
about. It's the name
compliments
of the
enter me.
game.
Yes.
It's the name of the game. And, so often when you hear singers, the technique is important. Without it, you're going to hurt yourself and have problems as you go about your career. But it's all about communication in the end. My first teacher used to say, heart on fire, head on ice when you're performing. You do all your
Yeah.
work in the studio, but when you get on the stage, you're a performer.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm a teacher too, and I'm a voice teacher, and I don't think I am I don't think I'm a regular voice teacher in that sense, because sometimes I tell my students, I would rather you make a mistake, I'm like, don't be scared of making mistakes. We're humans. We make mistakes. Don't be afraid if you forget, because they're so, oh my God, what if I missed that note? What if I forgot a word of the lyrics? I'm like, all that matters is that the audience is going to have an experience of your performance. If they feel something, they're not going to pay attention if you were a little flat here and there, or if you forgot one word. They're going to go home with a memory of how you made them feel, and that's how I try to like go with my music as well, and my performances. And trust me, I am very careful about how I sound. I spend a lot of time and care on perfecting my vocals. It's been 20 years, and I still feel like I'm a student of the voice. I don't think you ever stop learning when it comes to music, but sometimes I also need to remind myself to let go and focus on putting my heart there and having the audience react and feel um,
Thank
what
you for
I'm trying to
sharing that. It's
communicate.
really beautiful. And why don't we go back to the beginning of your musical journey? So tell us what it was like growing up in Italy, in the land of great singing and beautiful weather and great food. Tell us what it was like growing up there, and did you always know you wanted to be a singer?
Yeah. So that's, I grew up in north of Tuscany. It's a small town called Massa, and I actually spent most of my life in a village that is part of this town. The village is called Forno, and it's 900 people. So 900 people in the mountains of Tuscany. So you can understand that that's definitely not New York City, for good and for bad. I've been singing since I was a little kid. My mom says that I was singing at one. She swears that I was one and that I was singing.
Aw.
And what's interesting is that nobody in my family has passion about music. My grandma was a very good singer, so I think I got the singing talent from her. But nobody, when I was a kid, nobody cared about music. We didn't even have a stereo. I asked for a cassette player when I was 3 years old. I still have that cassette player. It's blue and it's portable. And my mom was kind of like, "What is this 3 year old is asking me for? Don't you want something?" I was like, "No, I want a cassette player." And I think she regretted that because after that, there was not a moment of quiet. I would sing every day and record myself. I have cassettes of me singing at 4 years old, 5 years old. That was me playing. You know, other kids were out playing soccer, and they thought I was weird because I didn't care. I just wanted to listen to music and sing. And you know, growing up in Italy is gorgeous and amazing on so many levels. At the same time, growing up in a small town, having big dreams is not easy, you know, because you're almost not allowed. You feel a little out of place. You feel a little misunderstood. You feel like, you know, it's kind of like, who do I think I am? Do I really think that I can do something artistic and you know and be successful and or move to another country? It's unthinkable. I don't know. You know, it's for a lot of people there living in America, it's like it's just not even an option, not even a thought. So when I started, I was very shy and I didn't really tell anybody. I started taking voice classes when I was 17, and for a year I didn't tell anyone. And it's funny because the first time I told my friends, I said I'm taking voice classes, and they said, "Why?" You know, it's just that's such a different life. They were like, "Okay, so do you want to be famous?" I was like, "No, I love to sing and I want to learn." But it wasn't really clear to them until I started performing, and then they started showing up at at the gigs and being like, "Okay, you can sing," and I was like, "I thought so," but it took a while to break out of that shell. To be honest, it was really I was so shy and so insecure about being an artist. I wouldn't even say that I'm a singer for the for the first 4 or 5 years that I was singing. Uh, I would say that I sing, but I wouldn't say I'm a singer. I think it took me like 5 years to
What was
actually
the turning
be
point when you
confident.
said, when you gained your confidence? And what type of music did you sing? What did you grow up on?
When I was a kid, I was listening. It's funny because I would listen only to Italian music when I was like very little. I liked kids songs, you know, Italian kids songs, and then Italian pop music. And then when I started being a teenager, 13, 14, I completely shut off the Italian music, and it was pop, only pop. I was obsessed with MTV. I you could only watch MTV with satellite television where I lived. So I begged my mom to get me satellite TV just so that I could watch MTV. And then I was just obsessed with pop music. Everything that MTV would broadcast, I would watch it and learn it and sing it. And then from pop, I got into soul and R&B, which is a genre that was absolutely not popular in Italy at the time. So I would talk to my friends and I'd be like, "Have you guys heard the new song by Usher?" And they'd be like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is number one in America." I was always obsessed with the United States. They had no idea who Usher was or who some of these superstars were. And then the turning point is happened with rock. I started performing, and then when I was 22, this band, a cover band of hard rock from the 70s and 60s, like Deep Purple, you know, that kind of stuff.
Led Zeppelin.
Um, yeah, they hired me, and when they called me, I said, I'm not a rock singer. I have never sung rock. I'm a pop R&B singer. And they're like, no, 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 you have a perfect voice for that. You'll be great. Trust us. And I remember the first rehearsal that we had, something in me, it was like a door was open. I remember I have never heard my voice so powerful and so projected and so strong. And the strength of that sound gave me strength and confidence because those musicians, they were much older than me and they educated me on the music of the 60s and 70s. I lacked knowledge at the time on that music, and they really opened a new world for me in terms of listening and learning and performing as well. And then when we started gigging, I was like, I'm a singer. I am their singer. I'm the singer of this band. But most of all, I'm a singer. I can feel this confidence coming out in my voice and kind of like growing in my personality as well. So rock music was that turning point for me.
How were the vocal challenges of adapting to that style of using the voice in a different way? I'm glad you had the technical background to back that up and use your breath as much as
Hmm.
possible, not to hurt the instrument.
Yeah, yeah. I was coming from already so many years of training, but um, I learned to add distortion, which is something that I always wanted to do. I loved raspy vocals. And I remember listening to some of these rock singers and be like, oh, that tone is so beautiful. They have that the raspy quality. They have that, it feels so raw and so intense. And then I remember one day being in rehearsal and just going for it, and I heard it, and I was like, okay, wait, 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 that just happened. So I tried using the technique that I knew. I tried to master the art of applying distortion without hurting yourself, because that's a very delicate, and I have a lot of friends who are rock singers, so we would always compare ideas and techniques, and it was all meant to be healthy. I didn't want to just scream. But then you feel one day it just clicks, and then when it clicks, you're like, oh, it's way easier than I thought. You just move something in your soft palate, back there, and that little happens, and then it adds that rock quality. And oh, when I started doing that, I was so happy.
I like how you call it
That was
distortion. It's like a little bit of distortion, like a pedal on the guitar, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden you can change your style. That's very clever.
Because it is an effect. It's really, people don't understand that it's really not about pushing, not about struggling, not about forcing it. It's about switching something, almost like a little click, like the distortion pedal or a button. And when you apply that, oh, the effect is right there and it doesn't hurt. It's just
Who are
about
some of the rock
practice.
singers you admire the most?
Oh, Chris Cornell.
Oh,
You know,
I'm so bummed. I missed him performing a couple years before he
I
died.
saw.
He's among my favorite singers in the world today, and I listen to a lot of different tyes of music. But I just love the way he communicates to me. Every time I listen to his solo artist music, or I listen to his Audio Slave music, or his days from Soundgarden. What an artist!
Yeah. So you know what happened? It's funny because I had no idea who he was because my knowledge of grunge was really bad at the time. And I went to the movies and I saw the movie Collateral. It was a movie with Tom Cruise and Jimmy Fox. And there's the scene where the song Shadow on the Sun by Audioslave is played. And I remember being at the theater and being like, you know what I did? I waited the credits until the end so that I could see the titles of the song. And then I wrote it down, and then I went home and I researched it on the internet. I'm like, Audioslave. And then when I got that album, the Audioslave first album, that was the life changing, because when I heard Chris Cornell again, what I love about him is he's so melodic and so resonant and so full, and then he has that, again, that raspiness, that distortion, that doesn't affect the full sound of his voice, because then he goes low, low, and goes and then all the way up there. I destroyed my vocal cords trying to belt that the songs from Audio Slave. That was, yeah, he's my favorite. But then of course the great, like, Freddie Mercury was one of my first that I tried so much to emulate. Steven Tyler, Bono. They're all very different. Sting, but they all taught me something different. I'm the kind of listener. I am a very greedy listener. I just like I want to listen to everything. I want to keep it, you know. So I try to take something from all of them and analyze their vocals and think like, how do they do that? How can I do that with my voice? You know, so that's my early 20s was all about trying to sing those even with naivety because today I would be a lot more scared. But back then, being younger, being, you know, a late teenager, early 20s, I would just be like, I'm gonna try to sing Queen. Right now I'd be terrified. I'd be like, okay, I need to prepare, I need to study, I need to practice, I need to. Back then I'd be like, let's just go for it. And I think that that naivety actually helped.
One of my good friends who was on the show a couple months ago, he's a classical singer, but he also sings in a Queen cover band. And he's very, very dynamic. He sings rock very well too. And all the members of the band sing, and they do all the harmonies live. I'm like, wow.
That's
Very
crazy
impressive.
because those
Very
harmonies
impressive.
are hard. Yeah.
Like Queen didn't do them live.
No, they didn't. They would play Bohemian Rhapsody. They would play well, but understandably so. You know, like
You can't have four.
it's
It's like
just
a
not
choir of
doable.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you make the transition and come? What brought you to the United States?
So the United States was my dream since I was a kid. I visited New York for the first time when I was 15. It was a school exchange thing, and I remember that was like the greatest day of my life. I just, I don't know. I was obsessed with New York City, obsessed with American culture, American music, American movies. Everything about America was, I was just seriously obsessed. And I remember coming here at the time and thinking, this might be the only time I can come, you know, because it's such a long trip and expensive. And I remember already thinking living here would be amazing. But again, it's one of those things that you don't even dare thinking because it sounds a little too pretentious or like again, who do you think you are? Do you think you can move to America and make music in the land of pop and rock? You know, like who from the small village of Tuscany? But then I attended the Berkeley clinics at Umbria Jazz. Umbria Jazz is one of the most popular jazz festivals in the world, and I am not a jazz singer. And I went with a friend of mine, a guitar player, and I remember thinking, we are just going to learn because Berkeley does this 2 weeks clinics and then they give scholarships. We were going to learn from the best teachers in the world and have this incredible experience going to see the show, soak in all the music. And then I applied for the scholarship just like everybody else, just because it was a possibility without any thought, any hope. I was so sure that I was not going to get it because I was almost the only one that was not a jazz singer there. And so for my audition, I sang A Change is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. And I remember the teacher asking me what the song meant to me, you know, and I told her that I understand the meaning of the song, the racial issues, you know, the civil rights message behind it. And on a personal level, it also affects me because I wanted a change in my life. And I told her, I said, I feel that a change is going to come for me too because I need it, you know. And she was
Wow.
looking at me with a smile, right? And then I performed it at the recital of the Umbria Jazz Berkeley clinics. And then when they were giving the scholarships away, I was just chilling there. I wasn't even paying attention. And and then they called my name, and I cried like a baby. I cried for 15 minutes straight, but like tears like this big.
What an
I
accomplishment!
just
Berkeley and the Umbria Jazz Festival, and make a mark on something so special. Congratulations, that's wonderful.
it was incredible. And at that point, for me, it was not just the possibility to attend Berkeley. For me, it was kind of like the universe telling me, "There's no more excuses. Here's your dream. If you don't go, if you don't get it now, if you don't jump on it, it's your fault, you know." And moving to America is not easy at all. I try to say this to my American friends a lot, that you guys don't understand how hard the life of an immigrant is, how hard the transition is. The bureaucracy is insane. Everything is so different. We have to adapt to so many new things, and we have less rights. We are not really citizens. We are like this, like in between. We have the status of like being almost like guests, but careful about what you do, you know. And it's really hard on so many levels, and expensive. It's so expensive. It really hits you on so many levels. But my mom, who I love, and my mom is my number one fan, not even musically. She's like a fan of me. I'm like her everything, you know. My mom is amazing because I think the worst thing for her was the thought of me leaving. And despite that, I remember telling my mom, "What are we gonna do? You know, even though I have a scholarship, it's gonna be so expensive, and I don't know if we can afford it." And then she said, "Haven't you been saving for the past 5 years?" And I said, "Yeah." She's like, "What have you been saving for?" I said, for maybe in case of a life-changing event. And she said, "Yeah, with the money that you have, maybe you could buy a car." And I said, "Yeah, a small one, but yeah." And she's like, "Well, you're gonna walk, but you're gonna go to the United States."
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, once that road is laid before you, it's up to you
No,
to
that
get on the
it,
path.
and you can do it. I try to say this to everybody when they say it's so hard, it's impossible. I say, if you want it, if I made it from little 900 people village in the mountains of Tuscany to Manhattan, it hasn't been easy. I'm not saying that it just happened, but if I made it, if you want it, of course you need to compromise some things, and sacrifice and work so hard. But it was the best decision of my life, and it's all I've wanted. It's all I've ever wanted my whole life, and it was presented to me uh, with that scholarship. It was seriously like, as I said, I saw my dream materializing on a piece of paper, and I was like, I have no more excuses.
What did you learn at Berkeley? What lessons have you take there? What are the teachers? What were the teachers like? And what were you able to do while you were there?
People don't. I think that people don't understand that Berkeley is not just the best music school in the world, but not only on an academic level, but just being there. It's a learning experience. Just walking through the halls, because what the people that work at Berkeley can offer you is the experience of the best in the world. So one thing is learning from a music teacher in your small town, and no shade, no. I mean, I'm not trying to like. I mean, everybody has their own, and everybody can teach you scales and ear training. But then on top of that, there is this. I was on stage with Sting last week, and this is what I've done. And
Wow.
and I'm like, this person, like my teachers, for example, I had many. One of my teachers was Elton John and Shaka Khan background vocals, and I love her. Her name is Kuri Kai. She's incredible. She's an amazing rock singer also. And I remember doing the audition for her class, and she's like, "Oh, you're from Italy? I've been everywhere: Rome, Florence, Milan." And I was like, "Oh, you travel a lot?" She's like, "No, I was on tour with Elton John for 14 years." So the level of experience that that person can give you in terms of not just vocal technique, but how to be on stage, how to use a microphone, how to record a song, how to be an artist. It's something that if you can only find in those kind of environments. These teachers are the best because they worked with the best and played with the best, and they were on stage and in the studio. She actually left in the middle of the semester because she was going on tour with Shaka Khan in Asia. I'm just like, that is just mind blowing. Lala Hathaway came during one of my classes to give me advice. I'm like, and they told me the day before that Lala Hathaway is gonna come tomorrow. I was like, who? I'm just that that Lala Hathaway, Donny Hathaway's daughter, Snarky Puppy, Robert Glasper, jazz incredible phenomenon. That she's gonna come listen to me and give me advice. To me, coming from my background, being face to face with these people and having these people be like, okay, so this is what you should do. I was just like, For me, I was like a kid in a candy store. And it's not even just that. The best studios, the best rehearsal spaces, the the one thing that I love the most about Berkeley is the fact that you can, in the same class, have a person from India, a person from Sweden, and a person from Brazil, and a person from Australia, and then we're going to go jam after. And there's this constant exchange of cultures and styles and habits, and you learn so much as a person also that we come from places sometimes that we think that we're right and the way we do things is the only right way. And then you talk to someone from Malaysia that tells you, you know what, that is not how we do it in the country. So you're actually not right. And it's such a learning experience as an artist, as a musician, and as a person. To me, those were the best years of my life for sure.
I know from my conservatory experiences, you get to be around such wonderful people, and you grow into that. You kind of grow, things you didn't even know were possible are suddenly opened up, and then you grow into that. And what an amazing opportunity to come from a small Italian town and come to Boston and learn away, and then
Yeah.
you finish up your Berkeley studies. What was the next step for you?
For me, it was really, at a certain point, it was about, I really want to perform. I really want to release my music. I'm finally where I wanted to be. People here speak my language in terms of music. Because sometimes in Italy, it was a little hard because the styles that I wanted to do were not exactly what people were looking for. I was criticized because I was singing in English. Um, it was harder. Here, it was just like musicians are available to play with you and they want to play your song and you just write the chart and you go to the rehearsal space. So my first thing was let's play, let's make an album, let's put it out there, let's be the artist that I want to be, and let's work. And that's what I did. I released my first album, put a band together, played different venues, different shows, um, played in different states and or Canada and North Carolina, California, the whole New England area. That also was amazing for me to just travel and play, And it was really about making this a concrete, like a real tangible thing. Let's do it, let's perform, let's bring the music out and let's have the people listen to it. So I just dove into the artist life, and then I moved to New York 3 years ago.
So pretty recently, you've been in New York 3 years. That's great. So what did
So,
so how did your songwriting get affected by your college training, mixed with how you grew up? What type of music were you touring with and writing?
it was affected. It's I definitely learned so much in terms of how to be a real professional. Because one thing is you write your own songs in your room with your piano. And one thing is, this is what you need to do so that the band understands how you want it to be played. This is the studio that you got to go and you got to have a pre-production recording for that. I'm talking about the craft of songwriting, not just the actual, this is me writing a song, but how you make it a record. That was something that I never actually, well, I did it when I was in Italy, but at a very amateur. We would do it at home. We would do it with little softwares and do our best. Now all of a sudden you have this incredibly equipped studios and engineers at your disposal and a full band waiting to hear what do you want to hear, and you have to be ready to deliver that and give them the right chart, the right information, use the right terminology to tell them, I want this drum feel to be this way. I want this guitar sound to be that way. Because being, Perfect Mark, I always say that Perfect Mark is not just me, it's my project, but at the same time, they are listening to me. And I remember sometimes when the musicians taught me a lesson on how to be professional. I remember one time the chart was not written correctly, and the drummer came to me and said, please don't do this again because it looks really bad. We're here for you. This is not how you write a chart. This is a waste of time for us. And I was mortified, because in Italy it's just like, yeah, let's go to the rehearsal space and figure it out. They were like, we want you to be top notch because we are top notch and we're at your disposal, and you gotta be a band leader in that sense. And the project is yours. If you don't know what you want, we can't help. We can give you suggestions, but you're the lead. And that was really, that made me grow so much as an artist to understand the importance of being a professional.
Like
Not
having
just, you can be as
skill in your
talented.
craft. It's a craft, right? Like being a musician's a craft.
Yeah, you can be as talented as you want, but you need to be able to communicate with others, and you need to be able to make people understand what you want and show them that you're a professional, that you can handle a rehearsal, a tour, an arrangement, and that I became that person, but it took me. The first year at Berkeley was really about, okay, let me figure this out because I want to be respected. And I remember some of my vocal teachers too, that when they would teach us how to write a chart for the band, I remember one of my teachers telling me, you don't want to be the singer who has the name of being the superficial singer that doesn't care, or the singer that doesn't have the knowledge about harmony or music or arranging or instruments. You don't want to be that person because that person doesn't work.
That's right.
And I was like, whoa, okay, I gotta get to work then. you know
Well, it's amazing what you can learn whenever you have like whenever what you may initially be like failures or mistakes. How that's where you learn the most. Like you have
hmm
when you made that mistake in the chart, and I got to point out, you don't make that mistake again, right? It's like
Oh
come
no, it
back.
never happened again.
And that's where you learn. That's like I tell my conducting students, I've learned so much. I can hear as a conductor when I've given a bad preparation beat, and let's say the horns crack or something like that. If I don't give a good breath prep, they might crack, and you can hear that, and that's my fault. And I know that when
Yeah,
I don't do that when I'm in a professional situation. There's a certain like a conductor's craft is a certain way too, and you have to always know technique, and you make sure your beat is clear, make sure that all the information you're giving is ready to go.
yeah, you have to be ready because people are working for you, and they expect you to. It's almost also a form of respect towards them to be that you've done the work so that they can work better.
That's wonderful. And so when did you come up with Perfect Mark, and that's your project name?
That was actually it was kind of a joke, but we were talking with my bass player at the time at Berkeley, and he said he's from he's very funny. He said, "So how do you want to go? How do you want to go with your stage name? Is it just gonna be Marco Perfetti? Is it gonna be Mark Perfect, or is it gonna be Perfect Mark?" And I said, "Okay, wait, isn't it Perfect Mark? Doesn't it mean something?" I was like, "Doesn't it mean like when you strike the center with an arrow, you call that a perfect mark?" I was like, "I think this is a great name for a band, for a project, because it's still me. It's my name. It's easy to remember, but it also has, I love this meaning of like hitting the target. And I know a lot of people don't think about that. They just think that I'm calling myself perfect. So that would be the most arrogant thing possible. But I'm like, no, no, no. I'm not saying that I'm far from perfect. It's just my name translated in English. But also, I actually wanted to call it a perfect mark. But then, they were like, nah, drop the A. It's just perfect mark. It's quick. It looks good. How the way it's written. So it was a joke, but I thought it was very clever, and I kept it, and I really like it.
That's a
But
great
not, but
title.
I'm not calling myself perfect.
Well, it's a great title, and anyone who's talked to you for more than 5 minutes would realize that you're humble, very humble. And I find that with a lot of the artists almost all the artists I've interviewed, that the people who work hard on their craft and are always learning and improving are not the ones who are egotistical, right? They're the ones who that know that the artistic journey is never an easy one, and we're always working to improve ourselves. So there's no time to be, egotistical because the music demands so much of us.
Yeah, and I feel like we have a lot of people. People need to. I feel like being humble shouldn't even be an option in the music world because it's so diverse and so, you know, I every day I listen to something and I'm like, I wish I was that. I wish I could do that. Every day I listen to something and I'm like, I want to learn, here's one more thing that I can learn because art is constantly evolving. And so when people sometimes are arrogant or full of themselves, I'm like, I don't know in what world you live in, but clearly you're not paying attention to the world around you because you're not that great. Even if you are, meaning that you can be great, and then there will always be someone who is maybe better than you, which I don't even like to because I don't think that in music there's any comparison. Everybody's it's their own artist. But the singing world sometimes can be like that. And I always laugh. They make me laugh so much when they're like, I'm such a good singer. I'm like, okay, like a million others, you mean? Oh, I can belt above a E5. Great. Hundreds of thousands of people
Congratulations. Yeah.
can do that. Like who are you? I want to know who are you? And for me, it's not being humble. Is I get reality checks on the daily basis of I'm confident about my art and about my talent, but then that doesn't mean that I think I am the best. I think that people should aspire to be the best of what they can do. I don't look at another singer and think, oh, he can go higher than me. Ugh. I think, oh, he can go higher than me. Let me see how he does it so that I can go higher, not to be as good as him, to be the best I can be, which I think that's the key,
That
to
is
you
great
you you
advice to the young
don't look at
people.
the others, look at yourself.
We have a lot of young people listening to the show. That's great advice to young people. The competition is really you, right? It's yourself. Is like I tell all my students. I teach at university level. I tell my students that the music business is a marathon, not a sprint, right? You should always be watching people
Absolutely.
and be around people who are better than yourself because that's where you learn.
Exactly. I
And
feel like it's also a matter of all those like singing competitions and music competitions and reality shows where you go on, you get kicked out, he's better than that one, you get voted out. And then we see after that a lot of the people that didn't win were more successful, than the ones who won. So I feel like we younger people are especially exposed to this competitive, it's always me versus you. I don't believe in me versus you in music. I believe in me and you can make something even better. Actually, collaborating is my favorite thing because when I write with others, they force me to come up with melodies on harmonies that maybe I wouldn't write in the first place. So sometimes by being restrained, you actually become more creative because you come up with something that you wouldn't have come up with if you were writing by yourself. I
that's
love
great.
that. I love when people give me a harm like a chord progression and I'm like, I would have never written this. Let me see what I can do, and then we bring the two worlds together and something new comes out.
That's the magic of collaboration, right? You find two great artists, put them together, and something new is born. It's like alchemy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we see that with a lot of the great artists. Look at like the Police and like how that those three musicians came together. They did this great body of work, and then they each went separate and did different things. And it was just very different. And it's that unique combination of people and personalities come together, and you never know what's going to come out of it.
Yeah, I see it on myself in the songs that I write by myself and the songs that I write with others. It's interesting to see that it's still me, but it's a different version of me when I write with others. It's so interesting because you can tell it's me. You can tell it's my style, but you can tell that there's a different flavor to it.
So let's you've come to New York City. What brought you to New York, and how has your songwriting changed since the time you've been in New York?
Well, as I told you before, it was my dream, right, since I was a kid.
The
So
Big Apple.
yes, I really needed to check that off my dream list. Let me tell you that I love Boston. Boston is in my heart forever. It's one of my favorite places in the world. It's the city that literally changed my life. And I just have a special attachment, not just because I went to school there. I think it's a gorgeous city. I really love Boston. Every time I go back, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm home. But you know, being in Boston and being 4 hours away from New York and having that, I was like, the child in me needs to do this. I want to be like, check, you know? And not just that, as you know, New York, pre-COVID, you know, offers so much in terms of art and possibilities of playing, venues, music scene. Um, there's everything you want, 24/7, open and accessible. And when you live in New York, you're just walking in inspiration. To me, it's just about going out for a walk, and I'm inspired just by what I see. It still feels unreal. I still don't believe that I live here. You know, I go around the city. I'm like, am I awake? Is this actually happening? You know, it's been 2 years and a half now, and I still don't believe it. And so, you know, I needed a change. I was getting a little too comfortable in Boston, and I don't like comfortable. Every once in a while, I need to be kicked. And New York definitely kicks you. Let me tell you that. um, it's an exhausting city at the same time, you know, and I feel like New York was the next level of hustling because of how it just takes you and spins you around and eats you and chews you and spits you out, and you just have to deal with it. Yeah, and adapt yourself. There's no The city doesn't adapt to you. You have to change something.
Every
And
time
the first years,
I've been born, I was born and bred in the suburbs of New York. Every time I make music in the city, it's always like, okay, here we go. I'm conducting a symphony orchestra in Manhattan. It's time to get stand up straight and really, study my score and be ready to play.
yeah, to me, I feel like my style has changed in a way that here was in these 2 years I created this new sound, you know, because after a while I was kind of lost, and I think that every artist eventually goes through a little crisis. It wasn't really a writer's block because I never stopped writing. It was more like I didn't know who I was, or what I wanted to be. And I feel that that's also a question that the system, the music system, puts you like, who do you want to be? How do you want to sound like? And I got lost into this. Okay, I just released this alternative rock album, and then I started working and doing, you know, gigs and teaching, and you have to deal with life too. And then at a certain point, I was like, am I still a rock artist? What do I want to do? And that question left me frozen for a few years, you know. And then I was just like, okay, wait a sec. Why don't we start from the basics? What is it that I love? I love a good melody. I love a good acoustic guitar. I love some like deep lyrics, and I love to sing my butt off. So why don't we just get a guitar player and restart from the bottom, you know, with the essentials? And I've been listening recently in the past years, like indie folk has been one of my favorite genres, and his singer-songwriters really influenced me. You know, like Damien Rice and City and Color. Ben Howard is my absolute favorite.
He's a wonderful artist.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, like and even like more folk acts, like I don't know if you know the Milk Carton Kids, this duo. They are amazing. So I would go see all this indie folk shows, and I'd be like, wow, this this world seems so pure and so. They take you on a journey. They tell you a story in a very poetic way, and they really touch you. And they don't need special effects. It's two guys and two guitars, or a, or something more, but not that much more. And I was like, let me go back to what I love: singing and writing a good song and playing it with a simple accompaniment. And so I found this guy, Jake Fine, who's an amazing guitar player. He's so good. On Instagram, I just hit him up and I said, I saw your videos. You sound incredible. I saw that you live in Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn. I'm trying to like release new songs. I have all these demos. I would love for you to play with me. And he said yes. And then our collaboration started, and he produced all my new songs. And not only he's an amazing guitar player, but he's an amazing producer. Because if you listen to Bad of Waves, for example, he did everything.
Wow.
Guitars, pads, drums, everything has been done by him at home. And that makes me even more proud because Bad of Waves and Anarchy having my last two singles, those are like artisanal work. He did everything at home. Then another friend of mine who's an amazing singer-songwriter, but she's also a very good engineer, mixing engineer, recording engineer. Her name is Valentina Blue. Amazing singer-songwriter, love her to death. She recorded me. She recorded my vocals and produced the session and the vocal tracks and mixed. And we did it at her home studio. And I swear to you, I've sang in other studios. I have never sounded so good
Wow.
like in this session. So this record for me is so special because it was the effort of people who are professional people, professional musicians, music lovers, friends, but capable of creating such a high quality record at home. And that is even more special to me because there's really nothing other than this will of making a good song and making it
When were
sound
those
at its
pieces
best.
released? Was the video we played, the Bed of Waves? Was that done during the COVID period?
Yeah, well, a little before. It
A little
was
before.
released in June, but of course the recording session was done. I think I did it in January. I just like it was it was done just in time
Hmm.
before the lockdown and everything. And then, mixing and mastering and then putting it out. And then I think, yeah, it was released in June. And Anarchy in Heaven was actually done during COVID. So everything was done remotely. So the guitar player
Interesting.
would do his part at home, and then he would send me the track, and then we would discuss about it. Then we would have a Zoom session, and then I went recording the tracks and wearing a mask. She was wearing a mask. I was like the microphone was like in the opposite direction, and we were trying to be like as safe as possible. So that also shows how at this point there's really no borders when it comes to making. You can make music with someone that's on the other side of the world, and if they're real good musicians, it works.
A good friend of mine, well, he was on the show. His name is Taylor Simpson. He's the drummer for Junun. It's one of, I think it's Pakistan's most famous rock group, and they've been doing a
Mm.
lot of recordings across the world. Like he'll submit the drum tracks to Pakistan, and they'll come back and forth. It's pretty amazing how we can collaborate in ways that we never thought possible, or that are that were only in their infancy before COVID. Now it's a necessity.
Yeah, and there's nothing like being in the same room with a musician, but at the same time, it saves you a lot of time and it saves you a lot of stress. You know, it would take me 2 hours between coming and going to go to the producer's place. And now we just talk on the phone and he's just as good. I mean, it doesn't really make much of a difference. Actually, I can see that, you can share the screen, you can see the session. We can really work on it on the spot. It's amazing. It's actually, yeah, as you said, it's really incredible.
Now you've had a personal experience with COVID. We were just talking before the show that you're just recovering from the COVID virus, and what has that taught you about all this?
Oh man, where do I start? It's so fresh because it's 3 weeks ago
Oh
I
boy.
tested positive, and um, at first it was like you're young, you don't have any condition, you're a healthy person. Usually at your age, people get over it in 5 days or a week. That wasn't the case for me. It taught me a lot on so many levels, mentally, personally, socially. The first thing is something that I now, as someone who has had COVID, I say to others, is that you can't understand if you didn't have it, Because when I was reading about it, and you read the symptoms, and you read fever, cough, sore throat, congestion, we've all had that. It's not a normal fever. It's not a normal cough. It's not a normal sore throat. Nothing about it is like anything I've ever experienced before in terms of sickness. I have never felt a fever tearing me apart like that. Being in bed and not being able to do anything because of how much it hurt to even like stand up, and shivering and freezing and having like my fever peaked at 102.2 after a week that I had a fever. I don't remember having a fever at 102. Maybe the last time was when I was in middle school. And a fever, when you get the flu, it lasts what, 3 days, 5 days? But imagine 2 weeks of
Wow.
nonstop fever. It's just like I lost 11 pounds. I feel like I shrunk. Like, and then it's not just that, because then COVID gave me pneumonia,
Oh
which
gosh.
was only diagnosed to me after 2 weeks because I insisted on getting a chest x-ray, because I was like, this is, oh, but you're young, it happens. Maybe the COVID is just lingering a little more. I'm like, this is not okay. It's not normal. I
Yeah,
don't
you're a singer.
feel
You know your
normal.
breath and your voice better than anybody.
Yeah. And so when they told me that, oh no, when they told me that, I was devastated. The thing is, it's not just the sickness itself. The way it affects you mentally is that you go through something that it's still kind of unknown. Scientists are trying to figure out. It's unpredictable because you could be asymptomatic or you could die, and everything in between, right? So you're home, and I was home alone, which is also terrible. Was also terrible because my roommate was gone. He was on vacation, and so you have to constantly be in a state of alert, because doctors are telling you, if you can't breathe, go to the ER. If you have confusion or dizziness, call 911. If you feel chest pain and you're like, what? I'm I'm in bed, feverish, in pain, with a hammering headache. I can't eat anything because I have a nausea, and nothing tastes like, everything tastes horrible. And I'm supposed to pay attention if I'm potentially having a life-threatening symptom. And I gotta have the nerves, or to either call a cab and go to the. It's very stressful. Like, you're just like, every time you cough and you feel like you can't breathe, you're like, am I? Is it okay? What's going on? And then get an oximeter and measure your oxygen level, and then your pulse and your temperature. And it becomes almost like this obsessive, am I okay? Am I okay? Am I okay? And so pneumonia for me was just, you know, the lungs are, I say, when I teach, I say this, the lungs are the engine of the voice, you know, and air is the fuel. So if you're compromised, if your engine is compromised, your machine can't function. So now you hear me okay, my voice is a little husky, but usually it's a lot more resonant. But if you heard me a week ago, if we had this a week ago, I would have probably postponed because I couldn't even speak.
Of course.
And it's gonna take. I'm trying to be positive and think that being positive to me right now, according to how I feel, means that I think that maybe I can sing at full potential in a month.
Wow.
A month on top of the 3 weeks that I have already. Uh,
Yeah,
gone.
it's such an amazing like journey for everyone. I mean, the whole COVID. I've had singer colleagues of mine. A dear friend of mine who was a star at the Metropolitan Opera. He was on a ventilator. I mean, it was like it's such horrible situations. A friend of
Oh
mine from
yeah,
college who was we're in our mid 40s. I mean, 45, 46. He was on a ventilator. He's a high school teacher. I mean, it hit people so differently. Some people just pass right
so
through. Some
different.
people it debilitated. And I'm so glad to hear that you're on the
Yeah,
recovering end.
I feel I have a lot more energy, and I might look normal right now, but if I went for a walk yesterday around the block, and I had to lie down because I was getting dizzy. A simple turn around the block, and of course when you have pneumonia, even the doctor, she told me, she's like, you can't expect, even if the antibiotics work, if there's a recovery time after that, because not only my lungs have been compromised, but I also had COVID. And so 2 weeks of fever, my whole body's like, my whole system is shook, but
You've
I'm
got it
very
all out of the
positive.
way. You've
I'm
got
very
it
positive.
all out of the way early, so now you're going to be healthy for the next year, too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a very positive person, and I feel I'm very strong, and I I am confident that I'm gonna go back to normal. It's just gonna be slow, and what I also tell people is don't take this chance, because a lot of people like me, we're younger, and we think that I thought the same, that my health and my age would have protected me. Oh, I'm 35, I'm gonna be like, it's gonna be a flu. It's gonna be a 3 days of it's a
Watch some
gamble. You're
Netflix
you're
and you'll be fine, right?
you're gambling with your health. And
Yeah.
I'm like, don't take this chance. Until you're safe, don't take this chance.
I just got my first vaccine yesterday, and my arm's a bit sore. I'm like, fine, whatever. So we can
That's
start
fine.
music again.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. Please give me all the soreness. I was like, if I could go back in time, and I would rather be sore for a week than a day of what I went through. So I can't wait to do mine, honestly.
So how's the voice coming back? What's the what do you think's the next step going to be for the music and for live music and for you as a songwriter? Have you gotten have you written a lot of songs during the COVID period?
Um, I I wrote um I wrote a lot of like sketches, and I actually spent a lot of time perfecting the ones that I already had. And this is something that I think was very interesting to me, was that the pandemic actually for me was very helpful in terms of giving me time, slowing my life down, and making me understand that maybe the way of living that I had before was not as healthy. Because my first year in New York, I honestly almost couldn't do anything because of how busy life is here, and how you end up exhausted every day. And, I'm a teacher, I sing at clubs and bars, and the moment that you have like a free day, you almost don't want to do music. And then, take the train, get off the train, jump here, go there, walk there. It's every day I would walk like 5 miles, and I'd be like, where did I go? I didn't do anything. And so when I was forced to be home, I was like, oh, I can actually sit at the piano, and I can actually write and produce and arrange and record. And it gave me it gave me the realization that maybe things are doable in a different way.
Well, it's so important to have some silence in your life. I mean, I teach at a university. I guest conduct all over the place. I have a lot of musical responsibility, but I find that I spend such incredible time with my family. I've got kids, and spend time with them more than I ever have in the past has been an incredible blessing. And when I go back into music again, which it's starting to, people are starting to ask me to do things again, and they're starting to make plans that I'm ready to jump back in full both feet. But I'm going to always make that time for the kids and to find that family
Exactly.
time.
No, it's you learn what your priorities are, and you learn what was wrong. Maybe that was you knew that it was wrong, but you didn't know until it was that obvious. You know that something was unhealthy or too stressful, and I don't think I want to go back to that normal. A lot of people say, I can't wait to go back to normal. I don't think that that was normal for me, you know. But when it comes to live music, that is the big problem because honestly, performing is my favorite thing. So that I've missed the stage so much. And
Do you have any live
I
performances on the books, or are they not yet? Are you starting to make those? Starting to think about that?
they are, they're starting to book, for example, in New York. I started to notice that they're starting to book things. But even, for example, I received an email the other day of this venue that they're booking for July. Okay. And we're March, so there's a pretty big gap. But then even in the message, they say, we're not sure. We'll see what happens with the vaccines and the protocols and the safety measures. For now, we're just saying that we're looking for acts in July for this venue.
It's
But
like save the date. I'll call you maybe.
yeah, so that worries me because I mean I've done some live streaming. It's just not the same.
No, it's not the same. The
it,
Zoom screen is
no,
great, but it can't transmit the same as being in the room with a great artist.
no, no. And I miss going to show because that's also going to shows is my one of my favorite things. That's the only thing that I spend my money on. Like people be like, I don't care about an expensive dinner, I don't care about an expensive or fancy, but I'm gonna go to a concert at least 2 or 3 times a month, at least. Or not even an actual concert like in a big venue, to a club seeing a local act. I love live music. I love to see and go in person and be there. Even recently, people have been doing live concerts. I understand that, but I can't pay a ticket to see something on my computer. I don't. I it sounds horrible, but I know that this is how it is right now. To me, makes no. I would rather not. I would rather not see it. I'm
Before you
not
know
there.
it, we are turning the page. Everyone's starting to plan. How can we, But it's like being safe. Your story proves it. You have to be safe. It's not worth taking risks. Be careful. Get vaccinated. Get out there again. But what's it going to mean to you when you get back on the stage again? What do you think it's going to be like that first time back?
Oh, I don't know. I'm actually, you know, singing is something so physical and almost spiritual, in a certain sense. For
Definitely.
me, when I sing, there is it's like my mind goes into this neutral, safe space, and where you don't think, it's almost like you exist in the form of sound that comes out of you, and how it vibrates and how your whole body turns into an instrument of delivery of sound. The movements you make, the way you stand, the way you breathe, everything is in at the service of the sound. So that is what I've been craving, that feeling of just making sound, and delivering it to an audience. So I feel that when I'm gonna go back, I'm probably gonna be emotional. I don't know. maybe I'm gonna cry.
Well,
No, I don't know.
that poetic description is just such a powerful metaphor for how that it feels to you, and that's not. It's not surprising. You're a very emotional person. You have to be an artist.
Oh yeah, no, I am very. I feel like it's my curse and my blessing at the same time, but definitely, artists are very sensitive people because we see the world with different eyes, and we can see something more that some other people can't see, and we can take inspiration from so many different things, and sensitivity is, I think, is essential to be an artist, to be creative. um, if you don't feel more, I don't know how you can do it. The problem is that when you feel more for the good and you feel more for the bad. So, we're very dramatic as artists. So when we write a song, it's always like, oh, yeah.
Pour
I
yourself
always
out
say that
there.
to people when people ask me, what is, your lyrics, they're so deep. And I'm like, yeah. So what is the song about? I'm like, if I tell you the story, it doesn't sound as deep as the song. But then, I'm like, but then you have to, like, you use your art to make a story, a piece of art.
What's great about that is people put themselves in every song, and they can be about anything. And they and that's what's it like when you hear people saying that they're moved by your music? How does that make you feel?
That's everything. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna share this because it's very. There's been two things that has happened that it really makes me. It reminds me of what my purpose is as an artist. Beyond. It's not the money. It's not. I mean, of course, I want to be touring and I want to fill up a stadium, sure. But so one guy, you saw my cover of "Hello" by Adele, right?
Loved it.
So if you go in the comment section, that video is from 5 years ago. This guy wrote a comment and wrote something like, "I was just diagnosed with cancer. I don't remember what kind of cancer." He said, I remembered this video, and I'm literally freaking out because I just received this new, and this video is the only thing that is keeping me calm right now."
Oh,
So I actually found that guy on Facebook and messaged him, and I said, "You don't understand what that means to me, and that is exactly why what you said is my purpose." And I said, "And please, I want to do something special for you. Tell me a song that you like, and I'll sing it for you, and I'll send you a video just for you because, But then again, something else happened. Like my recent song, "Anarchy in Heaven," it's about losing someone, and it's not a sad song, but there is this message of almost of letting someone go, grieving, but at the same time letting them go so that their pain is eased, because sometimes that's the only way, that it can end. And I'm not very specific about who I'm talking about, or I'm just using images. And then I shared it on Instagram, and then a person from Argentina, which is also incredible, like how, we're like all over the world. A person from Argentina messaged me and said, "We have a mutual friend, and my friend shared your song. And I lost my partner of 30 years this past summer. And I listened to your song, and it was the first time I cried of relief." I'm actually having shivers as I'm telling you this because nothing can compare to that. You can tell me that I'm a good singer, that but when you hear that, I feel like my purpose is done. The fact that your art can impact someone's life in such a deep way, um,
that's why we do what we do.
that's
That's
it.
why artists do what they
That's it.
do. And I just
You
put
know,
your cover in the chat. I just put the link to your hello in the chat, and then people can see that comment. And I've listened to a
Thank you.
good number of your pieces, and you sing every piece as if you're singing it that it means something that you could tell because you're so expressive. How can people find out more about you, and where can they go to hear your work?
Oh, I am everywhere. All the streaming platforms, Instagram, Spotify. Well, I am on Instagram too, so I'm on all social media. First of all, Facebook, Instagram. It's Perfect Mark Music. On Instagram is perfectmark.music. and YouTube, it's Perfect Mark Music again. And then if you want to stream my songs, they're on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Amazon Music, all the streaming services. All you have to do is look for Perfect Mark, and you'll see my face there. I have this like I have a headphone in my mouth on the side, and that's me.
It's a good picture. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, Marco. Your music is
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Your soul is beautiful. And I wish you nothing but continued success as we come back to making live music again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. You know, this is great. I think we need more conversation about art and music like this. So really, I appreciate it. This was great. This was my pleasure.
Continued success, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon. We have another show tomorrow with a independent rock artist named Ashley Bean, who is the leader of the Ashley Bean Band. That'll be tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Check us out on Sunday at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We have violin soloist Kinga Augustine, who just put out a new album, and she's playing concerti. It's a really interesting repertoire, so check that out. Thank you so much for joining us, and remember, keep music alive.
I've seen better days dripping down your face. We don't have to talk, let's dance. For all the times you felt alone, dreaming better, I see better, better days to dawn. To say goodbye, that's some cliche shit, makes me wanna cry. Just know that every time I look in your eye, I see better, I see better, better days. Try to remember that you can't forget. Down with his story, up with your head. For sweet tomorrow, she never fell from grace. We might still know sorrow, but we got better days. I've seen better ways, some won't believe, but I don't need much more than faith. For all the times you felt alone, dreaming better, better ways to dawn. To say goodbye, now that's some give up shit, makes me wanna cry. Just know that every time I look in your eye, I see better, I see better, better days. Try to remember that you can't forget. Down with his story, up with your head. For sweet tomorrow, she never fell from grace. We might still know sorrow, but we got better days.